earlier, and a philanthropist. So without further ado, here's Todd Carmichael.
Hey, everybody. As I said, my name is Todd Carmichael. And I think you wanted me to kind of introduce the concept of La Colombe, right?
Yeah, just like a little blurb.
All right. So La Colombe is a national company that spreads across the United States. We have cafes from New York to Beverly Hills. There's one actually in Bryn Mawr as well. We are valued at about $1.5 billion. We started in 1994, my best friend and I, with $400 in a bank account and an idea. So we're about halfway where we want to be. We want to become La Colombe, or the country's coffee roaster. We have cafes. We do wholesale for restaurants and cafes. We do a ready-to-drink product, and we do e-com. Boom.
Boom. Quick and short.
Wow.
So let's back up. Let's start from the very beginning. Before your days at La Colombe, can you describe your experiences in high school and college that set you on this path?
Oh, wow. Yeah, high school, it didn't set me on my path. I'll be frank with you. I'm a small town kid. Small town people don't think of starting major corporations in big cities, that's for sure. But I knew that I had a choice in life, and that was either I was going to work for myself or someone else. And I knew that was there. It's just that the working for myself thing seemed so distant. When I went to school, I went to the University of Washington in Seattle, and it opened my eyes. It was in an early class, and someone defined the word entrepreneur, and I went, that sounds pretty cool. So it got into my mind there. I didn't start my company right out of college. I knew I wanted to work on someone else's dime to kind of get my experience. And I determined while I was in college that I would start my company when I was exactly 30. And that's what I did.
Wow. So you said it was college, right? That you decided to start your own business, and why? And you also said that you decided 30. Was there any sort of significance about 30, or was it just 30?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I thought 30 meant you were grown up, because when I was 24, 25, I didn't feel that way. And frankly, I wasn't. I think that maturation happens at a different pace now than back then. And back then we didn't have information. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have cell phones. You didn't have this stuff. So the only way to learn anything was by becoming like an indentured servant to someone who knew what to do. And that requires working for other people and learning the skill from them. And so I knew I would have to do that during my 20s.
This is just a side question, but you worked at Starbucks when they were just starting out. Could you elaborate on that experience and a bit how that shaped you into coffee, maybe?
Yeah. So now keep in mind, Starbucks at that time, Howard Schultz and all that insanity hadn't happened yet. They had 3 cafes and they had a little roasting plant. Now I was off the farms, people. I'd never been to a restaurant. I'd never been anywhere. I hadn't traveled. I hadn't done anything. I didn't have any skills. I only knew how to weld things, and I knew agriculture. So when I saw this warehouse, I looked in and I saw grain sacks. Now I didn't know they were sacks of coffee beans. I just thought they were grain sacks. And I did the classic thing that farm boys do, is that you show up and you say, hey, you got any work? And they say no. So you show up the next day and you just wait till someone doesn't show up. And it took about a week and a half. Some guy didn't show up for the job, and I got the gig. And when I got in there, I started reading the names on the bags. It wasn't the classic names that I was used to. Instead, it said Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia. And I was like, this stuff comes from far away. And I loved that idea. And it was really that sense of adventure and a sense of elsewhereness that really engaged my attention. And I stuck it out. And that's really, then around the same time, I decided to study business. So I married business and coffee together, and I've just never separated them.
Gotcha. Okay, and then back into the high school and college years. And I guess now, who were some of your role models and influences back then and continue to be now?
Well, I love noble people. I love noble characters. I collect, personalities and biographies that folks that inspire me. But ultimately, I think the ones that had and that have the deepest impact on me fall into 2 areas. One, storytelling. storytelling. Storytellers, the biggest talent you can have in life and as an entrepreneur is the ability to tell a story. And the other one is endurance. Endurance and storytelling. If you can master those two skills, you got it. That's what you need. And those are the ingredients. So I tend to admire adventurers and endurance people who show that they can go the distance, and then folks who can tell a story.
When you say storyteller, do you mean like TV writers too, or is this mostly just business?
It could be anything. I mean, think about the 4 pages that were written, 260 years ago called the Constitution. I mean, it's a fantastical story, isn't it? But look at the power it has. I mean, storytelling can unify millions of people. It can engage you. Every religion, every movement, every great company is based in a story. And so knowing that story, knowing how to tell your story is absolutely key. And I constantly am looking at storytellers to, for inspiration and for guidance. La Colombe is a story. It's a story. And it's also a story of endurance. It sounds mystical. And I tell you what, I don't know if any of my children are on this call, but the other day I said, they were mimicking mom doing something. I go, how would you mimic me? And they go, okay, kids, the most important thing you need to know in life is storytelling. And I can't believe they know I beat this into my children. And it's the single most important thing you'll ever need to know if you want to become an entrepreneur.
So could you go into maybe like the background or the story behind how you co-founded La Colombe?
Yeah.
I think you talked about it a little bit earlier, but just like really get into the nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah, I guess it starts in college. I met my bestie, his name is Jean-Philippe Liberti. He was roasting for a company called Torrefazione Italia, and I was roasting for a company called Espresso Roma. We met, and we both had a love of cooking food. He was the son of purveyor of fruit and vegetables and meats in France. And I'm from farm, and farm for us is food. And so when Seattle, they had 2 kinds of cheeses. They had like orange and white, and there was no food at all. And there were no foodies. And so we would cook together. And when we did, we started dreaming of what we thought would be the perfect coffee company. And, by the time we grew up, and by the time I'd gone all the way through Africa and then spent time in Italy and France roasting there, we knew that we wanted to create that company that we dreamt of. We picked a city. We wanted one that was down on its luck and that we thought would recover. And Philadelphia in 1994, I don't think any of you were alive then, were you? No, that's like 27. Okay, that was way, like your parents were like in school, right? It was a rough place. We knew that there would be a renaissance, and we wanted to ride that renaissance. So we just opened a tiny cafe on Rittenhouse Square. I signed a 50-year lease for like peanuts, and I still pay peanuts. And we grew the company from that little spot.
And are there any, aspects of the business that you have a preference for, and, your partner, like do you split them up? Do you kind of handle them together?
Well, a company, it evolves like an arc. And so the first day of any company is pure entrepreneurship, all intuition. You have no data. You don't have I don't know. I think I'm pushing close to 1,000 employees. That have tasks to do. You only have you 2, right? And as it progresses, it becomes more structured, more organized, and then you can start delegating and kind of sharing, different arenas. Once we got into a certain arc, it was clear that JP said, "Listen, I want to play a secondary role." And I said, I want to move forward. I want to be the CEO, and he was really happy with that. And that was around 2000. That's when I started really driving. His role as president, his ability to design cafes are extraordinary. That's what he loves to do. He loves design. And me, I guess the 2 areas that I really focus on is innovation and story, marketing, brand, who are we, culture, that kind of thing. But underneath my umbrella is pretty much everything.
Wow.
Gotcha. So what was a typical day like in the early days of La Colombe? And now what is a typical day like for you as the CEO?
All right, first day. No one has ever tried to roast coffee in an urban environment before like we did, especially in Rittenhouse. Now, what I had to do is I piped all that intense smoke into a garbage chute that would go up the building on the outside and puff out the top of the building. But if there was any kind of a weather system that would come in, it would push that smoke back down, and that meant the fire department would come. So ultimately, we would have to roast it between 2 in the morning and 5 in the morning. And we would open the cafe at 7 to 7. So for the first year, maybe 2 or 3 nights a week, I wouldn't even go home. I would sleep in the back room. And I'd wake up, you'd roast, you'd sleep for a couple of hours, get up, do coffees all day long. And it was just endurance. I don't do that anymore. Now a day is as equally as busy and in a lot of ways more taxing. You're dealing with, your board of directors, your leaders, your directors, your EVPs of that. It's constant input to you. All the cords of the entire company are jacked into you, and all the messages are flowing through you. You're like the central processing unit, and you're trying to drive a really big ship. You get really good at it because I've got 27 years under my belt. But the difference between the very first day and today, it couldn't be wider. It couldn't be wider. I mean, it's just, it's the evolution of your work. You begin a scrappy little entrepreneur and you end up a chief executive officer, and that voyage is long, and it creates a huge divide between those two people.
Right. So we're gonna maybe take a little detour. So we wanted to know what are some of the challenges you had in the beginning days of La Colombe, and what are some of the challenges that you continue to face, this many years later?
Well, I don't want to be too mystical, but I can't think of the biggest challenge you'll ever have, I think, in business is yourself. That's it. It's you. I mean, you're going to have these massive like cliffs you got to get over, and there are going to be times the company's teetering on disaster and COVID, 9/11, and all of this stuff. The market will crash in 2000. These are all going to be hard, but the biggest challenge is always just you, because you have to evolve faster than your company, and you have to be better than your company. You have to be leading it. You have to be ahead of it. You have to always be one step ahead of where your company is going to roll. And it's hard to change. You have to evolve. And that is such a difficult thing to do. Most companies fail because the entrepreneur at some point, because the entrepreneur wants to use the same tools that they've always used to get them to that point. But you got to put those down, and you have to get another set and move on. And that's the biggest challenge, and your ego. You have to stay grounded. How can you navigate if you can't see the landscape clearly? When there's so many people turn into rock star idiots, and they can't see reality anymore because they believe their own junk. It's like, so it's the self, it's the individual, it's you, just like in high school.
That's useful. And then how has La Colombe changed during the pandemic? Have you guys adapted?
Oh, all right. So without using business jargon, there are categories, right? We're going to say categories. Think of a category like a motor on an airplane. And we have 4 motors, and they're very powerful, different areas where we do business, right? So one is in CPG, that's like grocery for the ready to drink. And you have, the cafes, and then you have these, right? Well, so you're flying your airplane, you're at 30,000 feet, and 2 of those motors get blown out. Boom, they go dark in 1 minute. Like all the restaurants, you do 6,000, 7,000 different hotels, and meaning you sell them coffee, hotels, restaurants, cafes, they go dark and your cafes get shut down. The turbulence is outrageous. I mean, you just start losing altitude, and you got about 1,000 people in the airplane screaming memes. That's what it feels like. And your first thing you got to do is stabilize the damn thing. You got to get it stable. And you've decided that you don't want to throw anyone out. Like you don't want to open the door and go, okay, goodbye. Like get rid of weight. I did jettison some luggage, but it was to stabilize it. And then you need to organize, you need to get everyone settled, and you got to work on that climb and getting it back up. And I mean, there were some harrowing moments. You know, the trees were getting close, but I pulled it out. And so here we are, kind of just climbing back out of this terrible, terrible moment.
Do you think, oh, sorry. Like, do you think it's made the company stronger though?
I think anytime you test a muscle, you stress a muscle, when it has time to recover, it gets stronger. Yes. Yeah, indeed.
So we're gonna take a little detour again. So you mentioned a little earlier the Haiti Coffee Academy. So we just wanted you to maybe like explain what it is and explain how it's an example for other businesses to use it as you know, inspiration to maybe delve into impactful philanthropy.
Yeah. If you believe the notion and you're willing to go the distance, you're willing to actually execute on it, you know that business can be a source of good. At least that's what I believe. And frankly, with the torture this company puts me through and the early mornings I wake up and the things I go through, if it didn't, I wouldn't be interested. It's just not worth it. You know, if you don't think that you're leaving something or you're creating something bigger than just your own wealth, I don't understand how people can be motivated, right? Haiti is specifically interesting to me because, you know, this is a neighbor to begin with. And it's a broken neighbor and it's been broken on purpose. You know, and it started early. This was the very first country that threw off the chains of slavery. And it was isolated because of that. And it was penalized because of that. And it was hurt because of that, right? And then it just kept getting hit. And at one time, you know, it generated about half the world's coffee. It was the single most important coffee growing country in the world. And I couldn't find any of the bean in America. And so I thought, let's go see if we can't find some. And when I got there, what I found was just miles and miles and miles of abandoned coffee farm. Coffee's still there because coffee's like a jungle, right? And it just crushed my heart. And I wasn't going to have it. So I said, all right, you know, let's do something about this. And I went and I pleaded to different organizations and no one was interested. So I said, you can insert a swear word here. I'm going to do it myself, right? And so we began. And now it's a model that most other countries want to use. It's very simple. We went in and looking for these farmers and I found my first one in Canada driving a cab. And I said, I'm going to sponsor you to go back to your farm. We're going to bring it back to life. And I just kept adding. And when we realized we needed a source for folks to learn more about this trade, because a lot of them were one generation off, or they needed fertilizer, they needed, you know, equipment, they needed access to market. So we created the academy and now it feeds all these different farms. Now you go there and it looks like freaking Colombia. It's just like, oh my God, the beans are coming back and communities are not only coming back, but they're settling. Now you're noticing education, you're noticing all those things that a healthy, you know, farming community needs. And if you can be just this crazy farm kid from the state of Washington and some freaky French guy, and you can make that big dent, it not only feels good, but you realize that you aren't just wasting your time building your own fortune.
It's mostly about the positive impact.
It has to be. It just has to be. I mean, I'm all into making sure that your family is safe and taken care of. I mean, I think you should be rewarded for your work, but if it doesn't impact the world, I mean, I don't understand what motivates people. I don't get it. Because the fact is, if you're successful, you're going to hit your number before you get old. I did. And so you go, well, what am I doing? What am I just working through habit? Well, no, I want to impact the people that are on my team. I want my employees to have, and I want the communities to have. I realized, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for me to get more than what I just started out to do. Right. And I think more entrepreneurs should think that way. And I think that should hopefully be the leader of the future. And I think it, you know, when you have those sorts of objectives, you find that more stuff comes your way than what you originally thought possible. Lead with your heart.
Yeah, this goes right into our next question, but I think you've mentioned that you want to be your own hero.
Yeah.
How do you carry that philosophy into every single thing you do, even just beyond the company?
Well, I mean, once you get that into your fiber, right? That's in your DNA. Because I'd always thought when I was a kid, I thought this, right? Everybody watches these movies together, right? These hero movies, and we all sit and look at this, and we so admire that hero, and then you go home and do nothing heroic. I just like I just don't get that. I want to be like my heroes, is what I started out to be, and then I thought, no, I got it. It's better than I want to be my hero. I want to be my hero. I don't want to look at someone else to do it. I want to do it. I want to be a hero. I want to be my hero, right? I want to do things that I feel are heroic. And the only person I really have to please in that case is me.
Right. So we just want to know, as we're high schoolers, some of us not, we're entering the job market. What's it like to work at La Colombe, at the factory, at a cafe? And what do you look for in your employees?
Yeah. Well, the first answer is it's really always, you hear this thing about corporate culture or the company culture. Okay, that's not true. Okay. What happens within there's a macro culture, and then there's all these other cultures. So if you were up in the plant in Michigan where it's more dairy related and we're putting things, there's a culture for that. If you go to the production floor in Philadelphia, we roast coffee, there's a culture there. The baristas have their own culture. The sales have their, so your experience is going to be a little bit different. And hopefully you'll find that matchup for your talent, but also for your culture. So there's not a one size fits all. There are those racehorses. Those guys are doing the big deals, and they're just like, their mentality is like just hardwired. And then you have the guys who are just pulling loads. It's like different horses for different gigs. So the culture will match that. I have one main question that I always ask everybody, and you'll be amazed how many people can't answer it. Tell me the last thing you did that helped advance someone else's career. And if you can't answer it, you don't got a job with me. What have you done for someone else? And you'd be amazed. People are like, I've never done anything like that for anyone else. I'm like, dude, you're a crappy team player, right? I like people who are interested in helping other people along. And that's what we're all here. We're on this road together, like this crazy caravan, and we're trying to get somewhere together. And some of us are going to drop something, and maybe someone else could pick it up, and maybe we can help other people along. This is what we're doing. And if you're just a soloist in a caravan, I don't understand why you're even here. And again, I would have to swear there are no allowed. if you're just a jerk, I guess I'll use that word, you're not allowed. Right. I don't want, it's just, life's too short.
Amen. I hope we all took notes on that part, how to get hired at La Colombe.
Yeah, be nice, be kind, it helps.
Don't be a bleep.
Yeah, don't be a bleep.
Don't be a bleep. What led to your decision to temporarily leave La Colombe and walk 700 miles alone across Antarctica? Maybe give some context too, because I don't know if everyone knows that you did this. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's this. All right. There's this thing where people climb Mount Everest, right? So it's a big deal, but it's not really a big deal because the one that's beyond that, the biggest one is solo trek from the edge of Antarctica to the South Pole without dying alone. And it had never been done. It was the big deal. And I decided to do it. And so I did. It's not a thing you just say, I think I'll go do that Thursday, because it usually takes about 2 months to get across if you're in a team. And I calculated that it can be done in less than 40 days. And I did it in 39 days, 7 hours and 49 minutes. I first did 100 miles, then I did 350, and then I did the final 700 in 2008. Yeah. I admire distance. I admire what it offers you, the focus. The spark that got me into being a coffee guy was the sense of adventure. And I wanted to execute that sense of adventure. Then I knew I would become a father and I needed to get this out of my system. And to give you an idea, I have a couple minutes on a satellite phone and I called my wife 2 weeks from the poll and says, we've been matched with our oldest daughter, Yemi. And I thought, holy hell, I better get there. I gotta get this out of my system. And I did. I set the world record, first ever. And then 4 months later, I was coming back from Ethiopia with my oldest daughter. Life should be an adventure. You got one canvas. Pick the colors that are lively. You're gonna paint some canvas. Don't paint it gray and white and black. That's boring. Put some colors in there. Do something that's outside the norm. Do things that confuse other people, but you are interested in. You don't have to fit in this perfect definition. You can work for yourself. You can see the world. You can be your own hero. You can do all these things. Dude, I was a farm boy with like, my SAT scores were so low, I don't even want to tell you. Like listen, I didn't know how to add fractions when I left high school, right? Okay, I needed to make up for all that later. So it's not like you have to be chosen or you have to be born into some. I mean, I spent a good part of my life in the foster system. So you leave something like that, as long as you recognize that you're allowed. I know it doesn't seem like you can do it from here because you can't, you're still in high school. It's like, imagine you want to be a doctor, you ready to cut open a patient today? Not really, right? There's some things you want to go through and learn. But if you want to cut people open, you can. And if you want to start your own company, you can. You really can.
Right. So
I'm not suggesting that any of you can. I mean, in an official doctor capacity, cut people open. Okay, go ahead.
Right. With all of your adventures, you know, Antarctica included, have you ever been in a life or death situation? And if so, well, I mean, obviously, what did you learn from these experiences / experience?
Yeah, I would say life or death. Yeah, maybe 15 times, maybe more if we started really looking at them. Yeah, I've driven myself into areas that, well, I mean, when you're the type of coffee that I've always been drawn to are those in re-emerging areas. You know, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it all. I've seen war. I've seen it all. You know, I stood on the border in Syria and watched Kobani getting bombed to shit. I'm sorry. I've done it. You know, I've been held. I've been arrested. I've been stabbed. I've been shot at. I mean, it's happened. It's hard to know which one was the one, because here's the reality of it. When it's happening, you don't feel anything, right? Mm-hmm. It's just after you process it, you go, oh my God, that was close, right? You know, it could have been dangling in crevasses in Antarctica. Actually, the one that almost killed me, I was in the mountains and I had my sat phone, called my wife and I said, oh man, I'm in huge pain. And she said, oh, it's just upset stomach. And I was just, no, this is really acute. And it got worse and worse and worse. So I made it down the mountain. I got on an airplane and flying home. And just as I land, my appendix exploded, right? And like an idiot, I went right to work to tell everybody that my appendix just exploded and I started turning septic. And then I went to go get the operation, but my wife was busy singing the anthem, so I didn't want to bother her. So I didn't tell her before having, and I woke, you know, the next day with my wife looking at me and the doctor said, you came that close. And she was so, by the way, never get a major operation without telling your wife. It's just a general piece of information that you should know. And that's probably, ironically, the closest I've come. And it was under my own, you know, it wasn't someone else trying to take my life away from me.
Right. You know, you just said that your wife was a little pissed off, let's say, from you not telling her. But what were your family's reactions to like any of the other times? Like, you know, have you experienced any of this when your kids were around, or were they all like before you had your kids?
Yeah, I mean, there's some after. You know, I was in this, you know, I went into an area of Colombia where you shouldn't go, but I went, and there was a really big conflict, and it's up in the northeast, and I chose to try to come down from the tip of this mountain. You have to understand, I mean, this road is insane. You shouldn't be on it. It was raining, and they call it Sniper Alley because gunmen are up on the rim and they take pot shots at you. And a bunch of people were killed a couple of days before. Well, I rolled that truck off the mountain and the whole mountain just gave away. and it fell in some trees though. They literally got caught like this. And so I was able to get out, and I had to hike down, and it took me all night long through rivers and everything. It was just a crazy piece of, and the word came out that had happened. And so the wife got news before I hit the grid that he's in trouble, right? And when I finally got down into this village, I got a hold of Vassell. I called her, and her only question was, so when are you going to come home? And I was, and she goes, you always land on your feet. I'm not worried at all. She's just not worried. You know, you got to remember that I met her on TV, and I decided that I was going to walk across Antarctica, and the first piece, the 100 miles I wanted to do. And people had picked it up because of I was raising money for different causes. You know, why use this energy if not for good, right? And so she had a morning TV show, and she was interviewing me. And when I reached the pole, I had one call to make, and I called her to say, hey, I'd made it. And I said, would you like to go out with me? And she said, yes. And then, she wanted to know why I wasn't married. And I said, it was because no one will put up with the stuff I do. And she said, I would. And she did. And she has, you know, so in other words, she knew it going in. that helped.
Getting into. Okay, I think, so you once said that for you, business and danger go hand in hand. So I guess, how are you constantly pushing the boundaries and taking those types of risks in La Colombe?
Yeah. When I say danger, I use that in a double context, right? It's risk, danger. You have to understand, entrepreneurialism is all about assuming and trying to mitigate risk. If it wasn't risky, everybody would be doing it. It wouldn't be profitable. You're doing it because you're ready to take the risk. And it doesn't just go away after the startup. You're going to have moments where you're going to have to gamble it. And sometimes you're going to have to take your entire life work, and you're going to have to flip a coin. If it lands on heads, you go into the next level. If it hits tails, it's all over. And that's going to happen 2 or 3 times, whether you like it or not. So that's the danger. Now, just like climbing Everest or walking across Sierra, Death Valley, Antarctica, whatever it is, you want to see if you can't like peel away some of that risk and mitigate it, make it lower, but you're still going to have to take that risk and swallow it. And so there's this connection. You have to know that there's no given. If you want to start a company, you want to make the difference in the world, and you really want to like do something big and large with your life, you have to accept the idea that you're going to be sweating it out sometimes, right? And there would be times when you're staring at the ceiling and your heart pounding, and that happens often.
So I guess a follow-up to that, I mean, you've done this now for 20 years, but how do you know when it's a risk worth taking? Or is it kind of, you've developed a gut feeling at this point?
Well, so the gut feeling is intuition, and intuition is that you've been paying attention to your environment. You have this sense of predictability of things. And then the second piece of that is data. And if you can get data, that's great. When you do your startup, nowadays it's easier to get data. So data is kind of like mapping, it's mapping. And then you go, well, I feel like maybe we should go this direction, right? So you want to combine these two things together. And I've already forgotten the question. Where was I going?
Like, how are you trusting your gut? How do you know which opportunities to take and maybe some, no, I don't want that opportunity?
Yeah, you got to feel, you got to feel, I believe in my intuition, and I also rely on data. Right now, for example, okay, let me give an example. I knew there needed to be a plant-based milk that had some significance, right? You cannot carry forward anymore with just dairy. Almond milk, all this stuff wasn't carrying it. So I knew there had to be another one. So I went looking for it. And I found one in Iceland. It's called Oatly. Oatly, I met these guys. They're out of Sweden. And I convinced them to come to the United States of America if they did a deal with me. So I brought Oatly to America. And now 70% of everything we do is oat milk because I knew it. And now they're a major corporation in America, right? Oatly and La Colombe are like that because it was an intuitive sense. I'm saying there's a piece missing. People, they're drinking almond milk, but they're compromising, and they know they're compromising. We need a non-dairy milk that's not a compromise. And voila. So that's just intuition. Why would you fly all the way to Iceland for that? Because I just heard and I thought, and it turned out to be true.
Right.
Plus
What events led up to you creating the draft latte? And another thing, as we were doing research, we saw that there was a lot of science that went into actually making sure that you had that specific amount of foam in it, right? So we just wanted to ask, like, how did you manage to do that? Like, how much research went into that? What was that whole process like?
Well, first, you're always, if you're an innovative person, you're kind of always collecting information. And it's when you finally trigger it, you realize you've always thought this, right? So I go back to Seattle, 1982. The coffee scene is starting to blow up. But the reason it's blowing up is that we are steaming milk, man. I mean, 90% of what we're doing is foam. And you realize as a coffee person that it's not really true. It's not all about the coffee. The leading kind of fluid in this equation for a long time was texturized milk. It's what drove it. I mean, it was this idea that the Italians had this steam one, we'd foam in, it was great, right? And it was killing it. Move forward, 1997, someone came into the cafe and said, can I have an iced whatever? And I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever heard because coffee was hot, man. No one had cold coffee. It was the weirdest thing. I thought the guy had been hit in the head, right? So I'm like, there's something, but I made it. I did the ice and I made it to him. And maybe we did 4 of those that year. Then it started to grow. And I started looking at this thing, man, this ice thing is going somewhere. And when it was iced, I went, oh man, that means that eventually this is going to be in a can. But see, hot coffee, once you pour it, it creates certain acids that you know that it won't taste good. So then move forward 3 years later, I'm in Bolivia and I'm watching this woman in this little cart make cold coffee. She's cold brewing it. And I'm like, what is this? This is amazing. And she says, it's here. And she's showing me these bottles. And I see that there are like days of the week that are on them. That's the days. So it means that it's stable. And I was like, oh my God, this is cold brew coffee. Now it's starting to turn, right? So I realized that once this cold movement started going, I came out with this thing that I called cold pressed coffee. I was the first guy in America to do it. We sold it to Whole Foods. They were selling it for like $9 a bottle. It was amazing. I had this little thing, but I realized, you know what? This isn't going to carry the day. You got to get foam because foam is the way it goes. And so it's churning and churning and churning in my head. And I have this little guy his name is Beck, not with a K though. And he was 4 and I was teaching him how to eat out of the refrigerator, as a dude. And that don't touch this, mom will notice. And I'm, you can eat pickles. No one counts those. And I'm going through the library of food options and which ones he could get away with, right? Because this is a skill every young man needs to know. And he goes, how about that? Right. And it was a whipped cream one, and which is unusual because we usually don't have like canned whipped cream in the house. And so I tilted his head back, opened his mouth, just blasted some inside. And I realized that's texturized milk. All you need to do is control that. All I needed to do was have a can, a valve, and within 24 hours, I knew it. Within 7 days, I had the very first functioning draft latte can. And then I had to gamble the whole company again.
Well, it worked.
It worked.
This is kind of, I guess, different, but I'm not sure what balance is like for the life of an entrepreneur, especially in the beginning. But I guess now, how do you manage your time? Because you have to split it among your family, your business, your adventures, once your television show, your writing endeavors, etc.
At the first you have your life is it's like being a parent, like when you first give birth to this company, your whole existence is focused on the health of that organization or that individual, right? It's all that. If you can get some sleep and you get some food, you can, but pretty much you're not going to have an Instagram ready lifestyle. Okay. You have none. It doesn't matter though, because this is the sacrifice. Now move forward. I have things that are key to me. I want to have dinner with my family. And so I organize everything around that priority. That's it. And some days I'm late, I come in, oh, but it's just, I want to have dinner with my family. I want to take my kid to hockey. I want to see the gymnastic meets. I want to be there for my family. So I compress and I compress. Now, your job as a CEO, a lot of it's going to be intellectual. So should you or should you not move into this region? Should you take X amount of cash and invest it in Florida? This is thinking. So you do that a lot. You know, when people, like when I'm watching a movie, they know I'm not watching it. They don't know. They know I'm not. Dad's not watching TV. The way I'm looking at it, they're like, you're thinking. So I postpone a lot of the thoughts that I need to have, and I put it in places that usually are domestic life. You know, that's why dads are so eager to like grill outside. That's what they're doing. They're working. You know, you give me a leaf blower and I'm thinking about, you know, financing, you know, that's so you kind of stuff some work in areas that you can get away with it.
Right. So we just wanted to ask, you know, majority of us here are young entrepreneurs, I guess you would say. And what would you say are some qualities that a young entrepreneur should develop as you know, start out pretty young?
Well, the first quality is you have to allow yourself it. You have to understand that this is not you can do it. It's not that. No, of course you can. But you need to allow yourself the idea that you can move in here and you can create something way bigger than you, something that can live longer than you. You can create something that is just elaborate and that it's very, very possible. You know, so allow yourself the option. Then, you know, find those things in you that you excel at. And then those that, you know, and make sure that you are familiar with those, right? If you have any deficits, like I have deficits, you want to replace that with people that you want to bring underneath your envelope to complete the picture. But I'll tell you, you better know how to tell a story. It's all about that. People think brand is the thing that kind of exists independent. Like, I love that brand. That brand is a story. These are just colors that match your story. Like, you need to know it. You need to know yours, because you're going to have to say it a million times. And it has to be engaging, you know, and you really, truly, you're going to have to tell your story to your bank, to your investors, to your employees, to the new hires, you need to know your story. And it's so, so important. So I would say that's another quality. And then finally, you have to listen. The best way to cross a tight wire is to ignore that it's at altitude. You recognize it and then you forget it. You can't look, you got to look down at the wire, but you got to not think about all that space below you. So it's helpful to be able to compartmentalize and ignore certain things, because it's scary up on that wire. And it's way scarier if you go, oh my God, like, don't look down, So the ability to filter, because you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to climb some of these buildings and cross some wires. You have to be able to filter that out.
All right, if we have enough time, we prepared like 5 rapid fire questions where you're only allowed to say yes or no, and then we'll go right to the audience with Q&A.
Okay.
So Neha's going to start us off, just quick.
Right. Okay. So is there ever a competition between you and your wife of who can accomplish more?
Nope, never.
No? Okay.
Are you secretly a tea drinker?
A tea drinker? No, not secretly. I am a tea drinker.
You're both?
Oh, yeah.
You ever do 2 in one day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I drink tea at night, coffee in the day.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
7.
7? Wow.
Never more.
Do you let your kids drink coffee?
Yes. Beginning at 4.
So wait, Beck is the youngest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beck can drink coffee?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Parents take notes.
So for people who may not know, a draft latte was sent up into space a few years ago. So did that draft latte that you sent up into space ever come back down?
Yeah, I sent 2 and they both came down. We couldn't find one.
Did you drink it?
No, it was empty because the payload, it was just a can, this gimmick, right? So I didn't actually have it. We wanted to lighten the payload, so I drank it.
That would be interesting. And we have one more.
Oh, one more. So I remember from childhood that you and your family are very into hot sauce. So I wanted to ask, do you see in La Colombe's future you expanding into producing hot sauces?
I think I remember your father. Is it your father, right? He came and
Yeah.
had some hot sauce. Oh, of
Yeah.
course. Just put that together. Yeah, we're a big hot sauce family. I would say we would do that, but just for domestic consumption at the Todd Carmichael house. Yeah. In
Right.
fact, I am growing some hot peppers indoors right now.
Oh,
Mhm.
any
All
special,
right.
any favorites?
Well, we're doing everything from ghost all the way through. We're going to do a tasting to figure out which ones we like.
Exciting. So I guess we're going to turn the floor over to some Q&As from the audience. So if you guys want to send something in, make sure to do that now.
Yeah, we'd prefer if you could just raise your hand, turn on your camera, and then we'll be searching through, or you can chat us directly. Neha, Mr. Mansour, and me. Any questions?
Oh, Sammy, let me just unmute and you can ask your question.
Hi, it's really nice to meet you. I'm Sammy.
Hey, Sammy.
So I was wondering, there are probably parts of your job that you really, really love and parts of your job that maybe aren't your favorite. How do you motivate yourself when doing the parts of your job that you find less enjoyable?
That's a great question. I actually have a technique that I use. I always start with the things I hate. Always start with that. If you have the dessert first, you're never going to get to the crap. So I just start because then I have something to look forward to. Always start with you don't like.
Okay, so Jason.
Oh, okay, Jason.
So you talk about doing all these like crazy things with your life. Is that like kind of subsidizing for like not being able to do that in your daily life, or do you feel that like you get to do all these fun stuff in your daily life even as owning a business?
Yeah, I think it's not that I feel like thirsty and as I have to go out and find it. You know, I'll be frank with you. I'm very conscious I'm going to die. And I've been thinking that since I remember, since I was 6 or 7. You got to remember, man, it's so temporary, all of this. It's so insanely temporary. And I was very eager that I know that I only have this piece of time, I only have one canvas. What paints am I going to, I want it to be as grand as possible. I didn't see that. I didn't want to jack it all in and just be a guy that's living in a van. I mean, I wanted to just, because a lot of my friends do that. My mountain climbing friends, they live in a van. I'm like, no, it has to be big everywhere. And so I just think, I think you should live life with both hands. Just go, Trey, let's do this, enjoy, and it's not that I feel that I've deprived myself and then need it. No, it means that I should rock on every cylinder.
All right, Mr. Weinstein,
our fearless principal.
Yeah, do you want to unmute Neha?
Yeah.
I think this is.
We've got a lot of questions coming in. Also, if you have a question, could you just do the raise hand feature instead of texting into the chat?
Hey, Todd, Scott Weinstein. Hello to Lauren and your lovely kids.
There you are. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. It's been awesome. Goldie and Neha, you've been amazing. Huge La Colombe fan. Just recently discovered the pastries at the Bryn Mawr store. That's been good and bad news. They're awesome, but I'm eating them a ton now, especially the peach Danish. And I really appreciate your story and you sharing it with our community. So thank you, and please say hello to your family.
I will do. Thank you. And I agree with the pastry thing. It can become a problem if you're not careful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Leah, let's go to.
Hi. My question is, when you were in Antarctica, like you had to spend so much time by yourself on such a dangerous expedition. So did you ever think about giving up, and like how did you handle like that isolation?
Yeah. Okay, how do I explain it? The hardest days, the first 5 days. And usually that's where everyone quits. You would think that everyone would quit later on when it's really, really hard. So you really know that you need to punch past those 5 to 10 days. I knew that. And when I got there, I understood why, because when the first couple of days, you're you. When there's light behind you, you're like a Western person. You have these expectations of how you should feel. But then over time, over that 5 to 10 days, something happens to you. You become a different human. The you that you know, it recedes into some recess, and this other beast comes out. And I named him the Beast. And the Beast don't care, man. The Beast don't care. No. You got to march 14 straight hours every single day. And it's 60 below, and it's blowing between 50 and 70 knots constantly. You're going uphill, 14,000 feet to the pole. Half the time you can't even see your own hands. It's just perfect whiteout. And it's brutal. It's just brutal. But the Beast didn't care. He just had this one thing going in his mind. It was this: go, 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 go. And what I know about the Beast is it's not just in me, it's in everybody. Once you can tap into that, that's the voice of all your ancestors. That's how we circumnavigated the globe. That's why we're here. This is why we've adapted, because we have this ancient thing in you that if you can tap into, you're coasting. So yeah, you would go weeks without even hearing a voice, without seeing color, without smelling anything. But you know what? He didn't care. He didn't mind, as long as you can make that transition. If you can't kick that person in, you're gonna crack. You know, just no music, no nothing, just a howling wind.
Let's go to Sasha.
Oh,
Uh-oh, what did I
don't
do?
know what happened there.
I don't know.
I think I see.
Maybe just, can you unmute Sasha and she can.
Yeah.
So I'm Sasha. It's really nice to meet you. I have 2 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is, how did you come up with the name?
La Colombe. Okay, La Colombe means the dove. And you know, I'd spent a lot of time in different parts of Africa, and what you find when you're way up in the mountains, you're in an isolated part of the world, but you're in an isolated part of that isolated world. And when you get there, you realize the folks don't speak the language of the cities. And typically they're rural people. They don't read and write. There's no need to. And symbolism becomes extraordinarily important. In fact, a lot of it, you know, even when you vote for a symbol. You don't, right? And so I was looking for a symbol that meant, at least to many countries, a symbol of peace, a dove with an olive branch. And it means this in many, many cultures. So I stuck with that symbol, and then I realized, and I was writing the business plan while living in France. And I thought, dove, what a terrible name. In English, it stinks. So I thought, well, I'll risk it, and I'll call it La Colombe. And I did, and that's what it is.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool name. And also, so you talked about how you're motivated now to get up and work, but how were you motivated before, when you were just starting the company and you had to wake up at 3 to 5 and you didn't know if it was going to be successful or not?
I'm going to answer that, and it's going to sound crazy, right? But first, you know, I don't believe in destiny, but I did. Somewhere deep inside, I felt there was this destiny, and it was this certainty. And it wasn't that I was getting all the signs from the universe that was telling me, you're going to crush it. No, it was just like, it was preordained. This is going to be, and it was that. Tell you what, so 3 days in, and someone came to interview us, because you got to remember, most of Walnut Street was shut down. You know, Rittenhouse Plaza was for homeless. You know, Chestnut Street was shut down, and here's this little cafe opening up, going, hey, this is French, right? And they had one simple question: what are you doing? Why are you here? And I said to them, we are America's coffee roasting company. We are the reference coffee roasting company in America. It's just people haven't learned it yet. I mean, this is how I thought. And we have become that. But there was this certain, so I stayed motivated because I'd already been done. I just needed to kind of go through the act of it.
So it's just also a lot of confidence too.
It's hard to say, because I didn't really have that much confidence in a lot of ways back then. It was just you can take someone with not a lot of confidence. I mean, I wasn't the talker I am today, that's for sure. I wasn't, I was a quiet farm kid. I just was an analyzer. I would sit back and watch but it was just this gift that I thought the universe was giving me, this certitude that did give me that confidence to say that.
Thank you, Sasha. I think our next, Tessa.
Hi.
Oh, muted.
Oh, I was muted. All right.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tessa. My question is there a skill that you wished you learned when you were younger that would help you now?
I mean, some of it, all the skills you have are built like a pyramid, right? So you have your base and you keep working forward. And I studied business at the University of Washington, tax law, and I put all those pieces together. I think I wish I would have, been a little bit more verbal. I mean, had more communication skills. I had to learn that later. But you're of a different generation. We were expected to shut up. It's different now. Information flowed from adults. It didn't flow from the internet. It flowed from your boss. That was it. So you were expected to be as quiet as a mushroom. And so what that means is when you get thrown into that position, you don't really know how to communicate yet. You don't get to. But your generation is quite different. I mean, I'm blown away by how the conversations that I can have with people who are 14 it just blows my mind. I'm like, this is great. We didn't have that. We were meant to be quiet. So it meant that we had some challenges to get over once we grew up. So more of that, yeah.
All right, thank you. We're gonna try to squeeze in these questions, guys, so I'm sorry if we can't get to everyone. It looks like S016495 is next.
Oh, hi. My name's Shaq. I had a question about, as you've grown your La Colombe empire. Has there been anyone that's come up to you about investing your money? And if so, has there been any deals that you've passed on that you regret later?
So yeah, VC, venture capital, private equity, what's going to happen is usually at the end of, if you're kind of growing within 3 or 4 years, you get 10 inquiries a week. Everybody wants to give you money. Once it's going and they want to take your company. It's difficult because, so I started first, and then a couple of my guys, there was the guy, Dwayne, who started Stumptown, and then Doug with Intelligentsia, and James with Blue Dottle, all these other kind of, gifted coffee roasters. The first time someone waves like 20 or 30 million in front of you, it's crazy, right? And they all took it. I said no at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, now 500, 700, 800, 900, 1 billion, 1.2, and I just turned down 1.3 billion because I'm not done. I'm not here for that. I'm here to make something very special. And, I turn it down all the time. Do I regret it? No. It's not done. And there'll come a time, I'm going to age out, it's sure. And then I'll look at it, I'll take a corner office and pretend to play golf or something. But look at someone you admire, Oprah. When she started, they said, we're going to take it all. We're going to give you 100 billion, 200 billion. And she just said, no, all the way through. And that's why she's Oprah. She runs her own gig, and she's not doing it for the cash. She wants to do it because she loves to do it. And she's trying to improve people's lives. Cool. My hero.
Thank you. Todd, is it okay if we go a couple minutes overtime or?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I think let's just get to a couple more questions. Hey, Mark.
Hello. So you sold like a majority of La Colombe in 2015 to the Chobani. I think it was the founder of Chobani.
Yeah.
What makes you feel comfortable selling a majority of this company you've been working on for a couple decades, and it's been a long.
Oh, you're breaking up.
you started makes you comfortable doing that?
Yeah, when you want to add a huge piece onto your company, you have to finance it. And while you never give up control, folks can, for a period, hold a majority, right? Which now he doesn't hold anymore. And this is part of the risk. Like, they're going to hold it. Now you need to perform. And so I did a deal with that. We would have, some transferability. And, because I needed $70 million in really quick, in a long time ago, in a very quick amount of time. And so you do that deal. That's what I'm saying. You got to put it out there. And then obviously people who invest in your company, they're not interested in coffee and working coffee and managing your crew. They're looking for a return. So you create a deal where they feel secure, they have a lot of things, and then you move that down. I'm, now with him down, I'm actually working on another one right now. It's just part of the thing. And, it's important too, to remember that, like, I think, you look at some of these other really successful guys, none of them can hold a majority. That's crazy. It'll never happen. What you want to do is maintain control. Like Musk only owns like 11% of his stuff because, you need a lot of cash to make rockets, right? And so that's kind of part of it. And that's a big decision to make, man. It's scary. It's a scary one. But, here's the deal. You can only go so far alone. You can go further when you're in a group. And that's something that, it's a difficult choice to make. But you're right. Everyone's different.
All right, thank you, Mark. Molly? That's fine. Oh. You're muted.
Sorry. Hi. My question is, how do you plan to continue producing and expanding, growing so much coffee without damaging the environment?
Yeah. Well, that's what's beautiful about science, right? So even now, the difference between 25 years ago and today, that conscientious people that are interested in making a difference have tools at their disposition. Now, it's going to be a little bit more costly, but you can now execute on it. Like, for example, the foil that coffee bags are in, right? Once you take aluminum and you put it against plastic, that's done. Now it's landfill. But 9 years ago, there was a new sort of technology that came out that allowed for that, right? And so for us, we know is as we grow, the technology keeps packing in, like the way our paper cups are done. And the plastic cups are made from corn. And like these are options that we didn't have before. Sorry, that help feed in. So I would say that our footprint has been decreasing from a maximum of around 2003, even though we've tripled in size. So the answer is there are more people interested in it, allowing us options to do something. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Oh, you're good. So I think we're gonna have to cut it short, but we just wanted to say thank you so much to every single person who came today. Thank you so much, Todd, for coming. We really, with FBLA, I think this talk did it perfectly. Show that you can like pursue your dreams and do that entrepreneur thing and be your own hero while also helping other people and saving the environment. So this was awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Keep drinking coffee.
Yeah, everybody drink coffee. That's my advice. Drink loads of it, and preferably the one with the dove on the bag and the bottle or the can.
Yeah. All right. So thank you all. We hope you have a great night and more speaker series to come. Thank you, Todd.